Hello everyone! In today's video, we dive into the latest article by Dr. Turki Faisal Al-Rasheed, published in Arab News. Let me introduce the author, Dr. Turki Faisal Al-Rasheed, a Saudi businessman, academic, and thought leader. As an adjunct professor at the University of Arizona and advisor, American University of Beirut, Faculty of Food and Agricultural, Dr. Turki Faisal Al-Rasheed, founder of Golden Grass Inc., he brings a rare blend of vision, expertise, and real-world insight to every article he writes. Dr. Al-Rasheed is also a distinguished author. His upcoming book, Saudi Arabia, Transformation, Uncertainty, and Sustainability, explores the kingdom's evolving economic and social landscape amid global change, offering deep insights into development, resilience, and long-term sustainability. Let's dive in.
All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something pretty fascinating: how a nation literally rewrites its own story on the global stage. We're looking at an analysis by Dr. Turki Faisal Al-Rasheed, and we're going to explore the nuts and bolts of how a country, specifically Saudi Arabia, constructs and projects its national narrative. It's this wild intersection of storytelling, geopolitics, and soft power, and we're going to break down exactly how the whole shebang works. To kick things off, we really have to ask, why is the Saudi narrative largely absent globally? Dr. Al-Rasheed points out this huge paradox. You've got these massive, unprecedented transformations happening right now under Vision 2030, but international media and academic research, they often completely miss the mark. The author notes that the outside world frequently looks at the Middle East through, let's say, a less-than-friendly lens, really clinging to these outdated stereotypes. Plus, a lot of academic research frames the region using strictly Western-centric benchmarks, like very specific models of liberal democracy, which just frankly fails to capture the actual on-the-ground reality of the changes taking place. And because of those biases, get this: objective scientific books on Saudi Arabia make up less than 0.1% of the hundreds of thousands of scientific publications released worldwide every single year. Seriously, think about that. Less than 0.1%. For a country going through such massive economic and social shifts, the rigorous, objective academic literature actually capturing it is practically microscopic. Section 1. The Missing Saudi Story. So, why the glaring knowledge gap? Well, it's mostly because prevailing media coverage tends to swing like a massive pendulum. On one side, you have this celebratory exaggeration, and on the other, overly simplistic descriptions. What completely gets lost in the middle is rigorous scholarship. The source material makes a great point here. Crafting a cohesive, globally resonant narrative requires years of patience, persistence, and meticulous research. And let's be real, that is entirely different from the fast-paced, highly polarized daily news cycle we're all so used to. Section 2. The Age of Narrative Warfare. This missing story drops us right into the thick of modern geopolitics. But before we go further, what do we actually mean when we say a narrative? Well, a strategic narrative isn't just an objective recounting of facts. Not at all. It is a highly organized story. It's a deliberate, selective interpretation used to justify directions, shape public perceptions, and ultimately guide behavior. In international relations, nations use these strategic narratives to weave together their past, present, and future in a way that gives totally coherent meaning to their policies. And the reason these narratives are so unbelievably effective actually comes down to biology. Neuroscience research, specifically some fascinating work by Paul Zak, mentioned in our source, proves that the human brain responds so much more powerfully to stories than to just dry data and statistics. A really well-crafted narrative literally triggers the hormone oxytocin in our brains that enhances trust, it builds commitment, and it fosters empathy, making stories quite literally one of the absolute most potent instruments of soft power a nation can wield today. To put this into a broader, global context, major powers are constantly battling it out in this narrative warfare to control how events are interpreted. Take the US, for instance. They champion the narrative of a rules-based international order. Meanwhile, China is out there promoting a peaceful rise and a community of shared future for mankind, while Russia focuses its story on defending national security against Western expansion. Basically, every major player is aggressively trying to set the global stage with their own specific story. So in this incredibly competitive environment, Saudi Arabia is actually fighting a dual battle. On one hand, they've got this defensive strategy. They're actively working to dismantle old opposing narratives that paint the kingdom as strictly traditional or completely dependent on oil. But on the flip side, they are pushing a really proactive, offensive strategy, projecting a new image of comprehensive reform, responsible openness, and regional stability. Section 3, Vision 2030, a new story. Since it was launched back in 2016 by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the main engine for this new story has been Vision 2030. It provides a really comprehensive national narrative by answering 4 foundational, chronological questions. Number 1, where do we come from? Here, they point to a rich Islamic heritage and a strong history of unification. Number 2, where are we now? Well, they're in a phase of bold economic transformation, heavily focusing on getting youth and women participating. Number 3, where are we going? They're heading toward a diversified economy and a vibrant society that actually contributes to global solutions. And finally, number 4, why are we doing this? Simply put, to ensure prosperity for future generations and to assume a leading role globally. It is essentially a structured roadmap of identity. Dr. Al-Rasheed highlights a really telling quote from the Crown Prince that totally encapsulates this strategy. He says, "Vision 2030 is not about reinventing Saudi Arabia, but rather about restoring its natural place in the world." That framing is highly, highly intentional. It emphasizes that the goal isn't to artificially create something entirely new out of thin air, but rather to position the nation as this ambitious, moderate, and forward-looking player that is simply claiming its rightful seat at the global table. Section 4. Soft power in action. Okay, so how does this structured story actually translate into reality? Well, it extends way beyond the country's borders through 4 main pillars of soft power. The first pillar is public diplomacy and tourism. By building these wild, futuristic mega projects like Neom, right alongside stunning heritage sites like Al-Ula and Qiddiya, the kingdom is actively building modern, physical manifestations of its new narrative. By finally opening its doors to international visitors, it's literally inviting the world to step inside the story, blending that deep authenticity with cutting-edge innovation. The second pillar? Sports diplomacy. By bringing massive global football stars to their domestic leagues and, of course, securing the right to host the 2034 FIFA World Cup, sports are being used to build really powerful cultural bridges. Remember that oxytocin we talked about a minute ago? Yeah, sports trigger those exact emotional connections with millions, if not billions, of people worldwide. Pillar number 3 is international mediation. The source text points to successful mediation efforts like the Iran-Arab rapprochement, as well as initiatives in Yemen and Sudan. These diplomatic moves aren't just happening in the background. They are strategically highlighted to reinforce this narrative of Saudi Arabia as a stabilizing, mature force in both regional and global politics. And then we have the fourth pillar, culture and media. Through these massive cultural festivals and huge initiatives like Riyadh Season, global audiences are being engaged with a really rich, diverse, civilizational narrative. It perfectly rounds out the kingdom's proactive storytelling, showing off a vibrant society that goes way, way beyond just economics or politics. Section 5. Countering the critics. Now, of course, a new narrative like this is gonna face some significant pushback, often relying on old stereotypes or accusations like sport washing. Dr. Al-Rasheed argues that countering these critiques requires a seriously organized approach. We're talking about leaning heavily into transparency, like actually acknowledging challenges rather than trying to sweep them under the rug. It involves really proactive human storytelling, deploying rapid response units against misinformation, and building trust through partnerships with neutral research centers. It also demands a huge investment in digital diplomacy across multiple languages, and, crucially, continuously measuring the impact of all these strategies so they can be refined on the fly. Section 6. Writing the next chapter. So how do they ensure this strategy is actually sustainable and not just some fleeting PR campaign? The author lays out 6 very actionable recommendations for the kingdom. They include establishing a national academy for strategic narratives to train the next generation, officially empowering youth as digital ambassadors, and promoting English language academic research, to finally fix that 0.1% statistic we talked about earlier. He also recommends fostering strong government-private sector partnerships, investing in authentic local content like documentaries and podcasts, and creating a national narrative observatory to constantly track their international impact. The core takeaway here? Ultimate success completely relies on the sincerity and the coherence of the Saudi citizens themselves leading the charge. All of this brings the author's analysis to a really profound realization, perfectly summarized by Joseph Nye. the guy who literally coined the term soft power. He notes that the most powerful weapon a nation has is not the one that destroys, but the one that builds understanding. When a nation's words and its actions actually align, a strategic narrative evolves from just words on a page into genuine, highly effective soft power. I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought from the author to really chew on. What is the story we are living, and what story do we want the world to talk about? In our modern age of narrative warfare, every single nation has to proactively decide exactly how their chapter in history is going to be written. Thanks so much for joining me.
Conclusion. As we conclude this discussion, we return to the vision expressed by Dr. Turki Faisal Al-Rasheed, a vision rooted in clarity, innovation, and a deep commitment to shaping a more stable and interconnected future. For the full article, you can find the complete details in the description below, or visit www.arabnews.com. And if you need its full story about, and to learn more about the author, visit www.tifrashi.org. If this video gave you insight or inspired your thinking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more discussions like this. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay curious, and see you in the next video.